The watch that is broadly received critically by all camps of enthusiasts, the Patek Phillipe Nautilus, a watch that some believe to be a holy gift, a grail, and others who think it to be an abomination, one of the ugliest watches ever made. And as a disclaimer, if you do not like the Nautilus, I don't think this discussion will win you over, but you might enjoy the dialogue and a different point of view nonetheless. I like being critical on this page. I think operating with a critical mind helps to bring arguments across, and I will concede that, in the scheme of things, I do not find this watch as exciting as other sports pieces available. Maybe this has to do with my age, and like taste, sometimes it takes time to develop, but there are parts of it that I do enjoy. The watch to me, in a word, could be described as refinement. I've said this before, that the Nautilus, at least to me, feels more like a refined Royal Oak, a more streamlined Royal Oak. Where the AP was and still is extremely successful, I see it to be the prototype to the Nautilus. Many of you will disagree with me on this point, but looking at it purely from a developmental point of view, the Royal Oak contributed greatly to the Nautilus and its final image. And I will also say that these two watches, though similar, stem from completely different design approaches. They were conceived during different points in Genta's life. And so, as we have seen how modern products have developed, sometimes a product can become more streamlined, and that does not mean that one is better than or greater than the other. If I had to choose one of the two, I would be buying a Panda 26331 ST, a Royal Oak, and not a Nautilus. Take from that what you like. But regardless, there is one example of the Nautilus that has always kept my attention. Patek Philippe have firmly established themselves as watchmakers who create classically inspired pieces. You don't need to be an expert to know that. But this is a reason why some find the Nautilus and the Aquanaut to be such strange watches in their catalogue. They just don't fit amongst the other pieces in their lineup, even after being in their catalogue for 20 years and more. And in a similar way to how a brand like Rolex still holds on to their Cellini line of pieces, even though they have now become the forerunner in the sports watch genre. A discussion about that will be coming up in the future. Personally, I find it interesting that a brand can have a small line of pieces that are just as accepted as their best sellers. And in the case of Patek Philippe, the Nautilus has become one of their best sellers by a landslide, along with the likes of Calatravas and annual calendars. So just to bring you up to speed and to show you how the steel Nautilus has developed into its own, I will run through the modern references available today. Get ready. From left to right, the 5711, the 5712, the 5726, the 5980, the 5990, and the 5740. Mad. All of the pieces fall into different tiers of complications. Everything from the simple date complication to power reserves, moon phases, calendars, chronographs, and GMTs. It is unreal to think that there is now a Nautilus for practically any complication you would ever like. And it is clear after looking at them that they all are a part of the same family. They share similar dials, similar typefaces. Thank you to one of my subscribers for correcting me. But what makes them appear to be on the same field, at least for my eye, of course the cases and the bracelets are the same visually, but the batons are what join them together at the hip. Every piece uses batons with their dials. If you separate your eye away from the dials and focus on the batons, you'll see what I mean. On one side, it is a great thing that they share the same space with one another, but where the watches are fascinating to look at, they seem, for lack of a better word, generic at this point in time. There is no flair, no pizzazz, and this is why the next piece takes the concept of the Nautilus and throws the principle of balance and conformity out of the window. The reference 3710, a model introduced in the late 90s, a part of Patek's attempt to combine the classical styling of Roman numerals with the retro design of the 70s. What makes this reference special is that it is considered to be the first complicated Nautilus, with the inclusion of a power reserve indicator between the 11 and the 12 o'clock position. What is interesting about the indicator is that the dial and the hand move in tandem with each other, and it is well worth seeing being wound. The dial itself is spare of decorations and is matte black, with polished and loomed numerals throughout. So what we have here is a Nautilus, using a superior case to the modern 5711 reference, since it came with screws for adjusting the bracelet, but incorporated the Roman numeral layout similar to the reference 5035. And it is with this juxtaposition that I find the watch to be so charming. It is almost as if Patek at this point in time were questioning the authority of the sports watch. Now, of course, these weren't very popular for obvious reasons. It goes against the grain and is extremely polarizing. I'm sure most of you will find it to be hideous on first impressions, but looking at it as something unique, it has a presence all to itself when compared to the modern references, and that is saying something. Is everything about this watch perfect? No. Like I've said many times before, no product is truly perfect. But that does not mean that a product cannot near perfection. What throws the watch off for me is the white date complication at the 3 o'clock position. I would have instead preferred it without a date at all. And for all of those wondering, the reason why the number 4 is expressed on the dial with 4 vertical lines, known as the watchmaker's 4, is because it plays in tandem with the 8 marker across from it. I would be the first to complain about the lack of balance with the watch's dial, but unbalance is the name of the game with this piece. In more ways than one, physically and metaphorically, this watch is a symbol of unbalance, and that is the point of it. So instead of just being another Nautilus, it adds something else. If we pair a watch like this to art, it gives off the impression of something unlike the others, like the invention of Cubism, for example. Cubism to most art lovers spelled the end of the classical era and paved the way towards the 20th century. If not anything else, owning a Picasso might appear frightening at first, but it does make you think some more, and importantly, begins conversations. I'll go so far to say that it would be my choice of Nautilus if I ever had the opportunity to own one, just for the novelty. It has to be one of the most bizarre models they have ever made, and that is what makes the watch infinitely more fascinating.